Imagine you're walking through a forest. It's quiet. It smells like earth and rain, and everywhere around you, mushrooms. Hundreds of them, growing from the ground, from the bark, from the dark spaces between roots. Most of them harmless. Some of them deadly. But some of them are different. They've been growing on this planet for millions of years, long before humans existed. And for thousands of years, people who found them noticed something that couldn't be explained, something that modern science is only now beginning to understand. This is a story of what happens to your brain when you eat one, and what scientists found when they scanned 28 human brains before, during, and 1 month after their very first experience. Nobody expected what was inside. You eat it, and then nothing. For about 20 minutes, nothing happens. Your brain starts to process the psilocybin. Your body converts it into something called psilocin, and psilocin does something very specific. It looks almost identical, molecularly, to serotonin, your brain's own chemical. So it walks straight through the door. It binds to serotonin receptors, especially one type, the 5-HT2A receptor, and it binds to them so powerfully, so completely, that your brain's entire operating system starts to shift. The first thing you notice? The edges of things look different. Light seems to breathe. Colors become more vivid than you've ever seen them. Patterns appear on surfaces that have no patterns. And then, something harder to describe. The walls are breathing. Not metaphorically. You are watching solid matter move. Here's what's actually happening. Your visual cortex, the part of your brain that processes what you see, is receiving input from every direction at once. Normally, it filters. It selects. It tells you what to pay attention to and what to ignore. Under psilocybin, that filter dissolves. Everything comes in. Everything at once. Unfiltered, raw. And your brain, trying to make sense of it, starts creating patterns where there are none. The walls breathe because your visual system is detecting micro-movements it normally suppresses. The colors explode because your color processing is running at maximum sensitivity. The geometric patterns appear because your brain is generating its own visual signals from within. You are not hallucinating in the way most people think. Your brain is showing you what it normally hides from you. But the visuals are just the surface. Something much more fundamental is happening. Deep inside your brain, there is a network. Scientists call it the default mode network. It's the part of your brain that is active when you are doing nothing in particular, when you daydream, when you worry, when you replay conversations from 3 years ago, when you think about yourself. The default mode network is the home of the ego. It is the part of your brain that creates the story of who you are. And under psilocybin, it goes quiet. Not slowly, not gradually, it crashes. The communication between different regions of the default mode network, the tight, organized, predictable conversations that happen thousands of times per second, falls apart. And in the silence where your ego used to be, something else fills the space. Your brain starts talking to itself in ways it has never talked before. Regions that never communicate suddenly connect. Visual areas talking to emotional areas, memory talking to sensation. Parts of your brain that normally work in isolation, merging. Scientists call this brain entropy. The brain becomes more chaotic, more unpredictable, more complex. Like a city that normally runs on a strict schedule, suddenly all the roads open at once. Every possible connection becomes possible. And people who experience this describe the same things, a feeling of interconnectedness with everything around them. A dissolution of the boundary between self and world. The sense that something deeply important has been understood, something they cannot fully put into words. 94% of the participants described their experience as the single most unusual state of consciousness of their entire life. Not one of the most unusual, the most unusual, of their entire life. In May 2026, scientists at UC San Francisco and Imperial College London published a study in Nature Communications. Led by neuroscientist Robin Carhart-Harris, one of the world's leading researchers on psychedelics and the brain, they took 28 healthy adults, average age 41. None of them had ever taken a psychedelic before, not once. They gave them psilocybin, a high dose, 25 milligrams, and then they scanned their brains. During the experience, 1 day after, 2 weeks after, 1 month after, using EEG to measure brain activity, fMRI to measure brain connectivity, and DTI to look at the physical structure of brain connections. Here's what they found. During the experience, the brain entropy exploded. At 2 hours after ingestion, the peak of the experience, brain signals became so complex, so unpredictable, that the measurements were unlike anything seen in normal waking consciousness. The alpha waves collapsed. The brain was no longer running on its normal program. It was running on something else entirely. And here is the part that nobody expected. 1 month later, the researchers scanned the brains again. The experience was over, long over, but inside the brain, something had changed. The physical connections between the prefrontal cortex and the deeper subcortical regions had become more compact, more structured, potentially more efficient. The brain's neural architecture had physically reorganized from a single experience, 1 month earlier. And the people themselves? Better cognitive flexibility, the ability to change their thinking, to break out of old patterns. Deeper psychological insight, a clearer understanding of themselves and their own patterns of thought. Measurably improved psychological well-being. All of it still present, 1 month later. And here's the most remarkable finding of all. The degree to which a person's brain entropy increased during the experience predicted how much their well-being would improve 1 month later. The more chaotic the brain became during the trip, the better the person felt 1 month later. The trip itself, the chaos, the dissolution, the loss of ego, the impossible visuals, was not a side effect. It was the mechanism. For decades, psilocybin was classified alongside the most dangerous substances on Earth. No medical value, high potential for abuse, and research essentially stopped. For 30 years, we knew almost nothing. Now, in the last few years, something has shifted. Clinical trials for depression, for anxiety, for addiction, for end-of-life distress, and the results keep surprising everyone. People with depression who had tried every medication available, describing their first psilocybin therapy session as the moment something finally broke open. People with decades of addiction, describing a single session as the moment they saw their patterns clearly for the first time. Scientists now believe they understand part of why. The default mode network, the ego, the self, the story we tell about who we are, becomes rigid over time. In depression, it gets stuck in negative loops. In addiction, it gets stuck in craving loops. In anxiety, it gets stuck in threat loops. And psilocybin, by temporarily shutting the whole system down, gives the brain a window. A window to reorganize, to form new connections, to see patterns that were invisible before, to become, for a few hours, more plastic, more open, more capable of change. We are at the very beginning of understanding this. The 2026 study was exploratory, 28 people. More research is needed. And this is not simple. These are powerful substances with real risks, including for people with personal or family histories of psychosis. Context matters enormously. Set and setting matter enormously. The researchers who study this most seriously are also the most cautious about what they say publicly. But the question that this research raises, the one that doesn't go away, is what it tells us about the brain itself. That it is not fixed. That consciousness is not a locked room. That even the most deeply entrenched patterns, the ones that feel permanent, the ones that have defined a person for decades, can change in ways we are only beginning to map. Next time on Bob Bulb, your brain makes decisions before you're aware of them. Scientists proved it, and it changes everything you think you know about free will. Keep your brain on.